So here we are live again, this time in the month of June, and just looking to see if we are being broadcasted out to the world and seeing what will happen. So I should welcome everybody in the audience, and I'll just ask everyone to say hello in the chat area to make sure that I am being heard. Oh, there we go. I'll kill that. So the nice thing about Google and Business Hangouts is there's a delay. So when I ask a question, it takes about 45 seconds until people can get to the text chat and respond. So we'll just wait and see if anyone says hello, and we'll know everyone is active. I'm watching on another machine, so I know we're on air. So that's terrific. And thank goodness we can edit these things. I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to get rid of the front end. Look at that. There's some of our guests. See? They're all starting to say hello in the chat box. So, and they're typing away. This is a very casual session. Those of you who are new, and I see so many new names here in the viewer list, this is not a formal presentation with PowerPoint slides. This is a conversation, coffee and conversation about coping with cancer. And today, as you know, it's what is and why use a cancer coach. It's a very fascinating area that many people have registered for. So I'm very excited. And for those of you out there looking at the screen, you'll see below me is what's called the film strip, and we have my co-host Sheila Shuster. You can wave at everyone. There she is, waving at you, and I'll just see. Yes, I can see that happening. So there we go. And beside Sheila is Paula. So we have our main guest for today. So I think we're about settled in. So let's begin. So let me formally say welcome to everybody. It's good to have everyone available this afternoon for a casual conversation about what the heck is a coach and why would you use one. It's something that I'm particularly interested in because while I was involved in my active treatment, there were many issues that I was facing that I wish I could have some assistance with. And I was told that the help really resided in the psychosocial department of the hospital. And I did reach out and talk to a couple of people there, and I talked to a chaplain at times to get some other guidance as I was dealing with the emotional crisis, particularly at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so I thought I had my friends, my family, and the professional oncology team helping me out. But when I was discharged, I discovered that there were additional resources that I could have had called a cancer coach. And it shouldn't have surprised me that much because we've heard of life coaches, we've heard of business coaches, there have been addiction coaches. I mean, so many different kinds of weight coaches, weight loss coaches. I mean, everyone hears coaching, but cancer coaches are not something that typically comes to mind. And as I did my Google search and tried to find out who was out there, I was surprised that they were difficult to find, but they did exist. And over the last few months, I've done a lot of research about who's doing what that I want to share today. And to do that, we have my co-host Sheila, who I'll just turn on the camera and let her introduce herself and why she thinks cancer coaching is as of an area of interest. And then we'll move over to Paula Holland DeLong, our guest, who is a cancer coach with many years of experience, who will give us some idea of what she does and why she thinks it's an important, valuable thing. So let me just move over to Sheila. And there you are. I've got you on camera. So say hello.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be back. Always enjoy these conversations with Dave. I should first start by saying I'm not a cancer coach. Life is funny, Dave, isn't it? There's a lots of changes that happen to us over the course of your life, and I am a stress management coach. I came to this area because of a lot of losses in my life, and typically that's what I find about most coaches that I speak with. When they end up in coaching, it's because they've gone through some traumatic events in their lives, and they want to help after they've gone through that. So about 6 years ago, I went through a period of divorce, deaths, loss of a business, loss of a longtime pet, all within a short amount of time. And this led me to a series of discoveries about myself and wanting to help. So I ended up actually becoming a grief counselor, a stress management coach, and I'm also certified in nutrition. And along this path, I found myself helping a lot of cancer patients. I did a lot of work in hospice as it relates to families and stress, but of course a lot of hospice patients are cancer patients. It's kind of funny to me that I started my career however many years ago in the early 80s in cancer diagnostics. My degree was in biology, and I was always in science and in patient education. So it's funny to me that we kind of come full circle, and here I am sitting with this group talking about cancer once again. That is my forte. That's kind of my background. I met Dave a couple of years ago online, and we've started some discussions, and I am so thrilled to be a part of everything that unfolds in this Finding Your New Normal process.
And you make it so easy when we get together every month, where we're just talking. And that's a different kind of format. Everyone's used to a formal webinar with slides and go into PowerPoint presentation mode. And here we're just chatting about a concept. And every month we have a variety of different concepts that come to mind, often directed by our audience. And then Sheila and I can chat about it. And sometimes we bring in a new resource, a specialist in the topic area, and we have one of those today. Let me turn the camera on to Paula and let yourself. There you go.
Hello, everybody. I'm Paula Holland along, and I am a 18-year breast cancer survivor. And I got into the work that I'm doing now because it took me 3 years to get my life back after my chemotherapy ended, and that's way too long. And so I became involved at that point in life coaching, and then evolved into survivor life coaching. And my practice now is made up primarily of cancer patients and survivors. I also work within the oncology healthcare community some, and I feel really grateful to be here today and excited about talking about cancer coaching, because as Dave said, it is an emerging profession and there's a huge need. And I think one reason that the need is so important is we coaches oftentimes are the point in which we can help people go from ideas and good intentions into action and actually doing things to make their life different. And when you're in the midst of a cancer experience and the world has gone crazy and you have no idea what to do, having a voice of reason from somebody who knows what to do or who's been there and done it can make all the difference in the ability to navigate the experience in a way that doesn't drive you totally insane.
And it's kind of interesting, Paula, because as I started to research what the heck is a cancer coach, I found a couple of different dimensions. I guess one of them was what I'd call the professional medical specialist who is helping navigate the patient through the treatment program, the post-treatment program, the survivorship. They tend to have medical knowledge. They're an oncology background, a nurse practitioner, a psychosocial worker, and they have sort of a medical model in mind as they bring an integrative oncology perspective to helping the patient go through this journey. Then I discovered there were people like you, Paula, who are cancer survivors who also have a coaching background or have learned some coaching skills, and they know what it was like to walk within this journey, and decided they would like to help, and so they've set up a private practice as a cancer coach. And then I've discovered that there were life coaches who know that they have coaching ability and have or have not some familiarity with cancer, but try to deal with those relationships that relationship issues that they come across from a coaching perspective. Is that true, Paula? Are there these kinds of groupings out there? Are there more? Are they less?
Yeah.
Is that your experience?
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of different possibilities. Coaching is a unregulated industry, but I think that they kind of fall into several areas. And the first one, as you alluded to, is the person who can help at the time of diagnosis and while you're going through active treatment. And a lot of hospitals, insurance companies have a cancer coach role, and as you described, it's really a primary focus on navigation, of helping the person know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what all of this crazy information and things that are coming in mean. But it's the role and the patient navigation role, which is a specific industry training that can be received as well, is really taking the lead and becoming the focal point in that integrated care model. And so when you're newly diagnosed and you're going through the experience, a cancer coach that focuses on the navigation part of it, or a certified patient navigator, which may be at your treatment center, they're going to be your lifeline to knowing what to do and what to do next. And I think that that's an important distinction from some of the other coaches that are out there. So when you're diagnosed and going through treatment, definitely somebody who specializes is very familiar with and understands the medical aspects of it is really important. And I would also add to that at time of diagnosis, the one other thing that I have seen can make a significant difference for patients, whether it's involving coaching or not, is just being able to talk to another survivor. And when I was a Reach to Recovery volunteer for about 10 years, I would go and visit newly diagnosed patients in the hospital, not to coach them, but just to say, hey, I'm on the other side. I'm here. I did it too. How can I help you? What questions can I answer? That's a really powerful psychosocial component at the beginning of the experience that can make a big difference for a patient. So it doesn't have to be a coach. It can be a volunteer. It can be somebody that you know. But when you're diagnosed and going through treatment, you're really focusing on, how do I get through this? What do I do with all of this flood of information and things I'm supposed to do that are outside of my comfort zone? And incredibly valuable role, and I'm really just ecstatic about the increase in the role of the patient navigator in oncology healthcare. I think it's a critical component for the future. And so we have the time of diagnosis, going through active treatment. Then we have that wonderful day when treatment ends and our life is going to go back to normal. Yay!
Go back to normal?
Yeah, yeah. And most of us kind of think that that's really what's going to happen. But what I certainly learned from my own experience and my volunteer experience is that the emotional issues of the transition from being in that cocooned treatment process where everybody's supporting you, you're surrounded by people who are checking your medical stuff and telling you what's going on, and all of a sudden that disappears and you're kind of sitting there going, okay, wow, normal. Wonder what about that normal might have made me sick. Or maybe I don't really want to go back to normal. Maybe I want to help people, or I want my life to matter more. And that transition period of creating the new normal, where your life goes from this great big blob of cancer into here's your life again, and cancer is just a teeny part of it, that is often one of the most traumatic times of the experience. Many people say emotionally it's just as bad as it was when they were diagnosed, and I truly believe that. So the transition part of it is where a coach who is more trained and credentialed in helping people make choices and create new behaviors in their life is really valuable at that point in time, because the healthcare community does a great job of telling us what we need to do, and then our own minds are telling us, gosh, I want to be healthier, I want to lose weight, quit smoking, eat better, whatever it is, but that it's almost a universal desire. I want to be healthier. And then we come up to the same normal human resistance to change that every single person thinks. You know, how many people on this call have wanted to lose 10 pounds for the last 10 years? You know, and getting started and being able to move into action around what you want, or even trying to figure out what you want, that's where life coaching and survivorship coaching can really come to the forefront and help people, especially when it can be part of the integrated oncology process, because we are not here to do anything that the medical community wouldn't do. We're really here to help you do what the medical community tells you to do, and do it easily and effectively, and not struggle with it, and then also to help you find your own way to be healthy, because it's different for every person. So the transition is a really critical point in which a cancer coach, especially one with experience in the illness, can make a big difference, because sometimes it's really hard to talk to the people in our lives about what's going on. Most people assume, like we did, chemo's done, life's back to normal. What do you mean you're still having issues? What do you mean you're still struggling? But yet, we who've been there know that often for a year, 2, 3 years, like for me, it can take that much time to get your life back, to get a new healthy you in place. And so cancer coaching is a really beneficial thing. And then the third part of the experience, where I think that people, certainly my clients, look for coaches, is once the dust is settled, you've kind of gotten back into a new kind of normal routine, but there's this longing for something more, or something to give back, or to maybe do the things in life that you had been putting off because you were sure you were going to have time later, and all of a sudden you realize that you're not. So those are the kind of main areas of coaching. And I feel like I should also mention one other area that I've noticed, and that is there are a lot of coaches out there, cancer coaches, who, in addition to offering the psychosocial support, the behavior change support, they may have a product or a process, a detox product or process, or things that they will take people through as well. And that you will also find people called cancer coaches who do that. That's not something that I'm experienced with, and I'm not a doctor or medical person, so I can't really speak to it, but there's a lot of it out there, and there's a lot of people experiencing it. So I think it's important to know that the coaching is available during the time of treatment for all the stuff that's happening then, but there's also psychosocial support afterwards, and there can also be medical and alternative complementary lifestyle change support. I don't endorse or not endorse any of those products, but they're definitely out there, and if you're a survivor, you're probably going to come across them.
This is really good orientation. Let me just move over to Sheila, because I saw her nodding and making some comments. Go for it, Sheila.
Well, I just think this is such valuable information to get from Paula, and so much of it is new to me, coming from the background of primarily stress management, and I have had a lot of clients with health issues, obviously. As a grief counselor, I deal with all kinds of loss, so not just death, but physical loss as well, loss of your health. And to know that there are specific groups out there to help you through the cancer process and their cancer survivorship is huge. I really related to the part where Paula was talking about once your chemo is done, especially the community around you feels like you should be getting back to your old self, and they kind of go about their own routines, and you're sort of lost. So how great is it to know that you have this community out there to help guide you through the next steps, and that's what I was really relating to. So thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
They're really, as I said, the depth of the level of services is quite remarkable. And as I said, as I looked at different groups, I was looking at the comment lines that were being brought to us, and Jen Marshall is in the audience, and let's see if I'm smart enough to use the technology to bring up her comment. There we go. It's a little longer, but she represents the National Association of Professional Cancer Coaches, and I've talked to her, and hopefully in a future broadcast she'll agree to come online and talk about what her group is doing. It is a exciting thing to see groups who have been established, as in her case, for well over 10 years, and gain a reputation with the cancer clinics in hospitals. Certainly, I came across Jen's group because I was talking to hospitals and clinics of what do you do for help for the survivor, the person that you've discharged. And Jen's group was one of the ones here in Canada that is well known and has a high degree of positive recommendation. In fact, it was caught me off guard, the number of people. But I guess if you've been at it for 10 years and talked to people and delivered a good service, you're going to be the one that comes to mind. But that wasn't the only source of information that was out there. There was the Cancer Journey, which was an interesting group of people that really were cancer survivors and were given coaching skills. It is run by cancer survivors so that they understand what the journey is like and try to take people who are interested in learning life coaching skills to adapt their cancer knowledge to. And then there was another group called Well Beyond This, representing a group of the life coaches who primarily are under the umbrella of a consulting group called IPEC. And they are just about to launch an application actually online that will help cancer patients and survivors deal with the issues that Paula was talking about. The thing that I haven't found yet, and Paula, maybe you can address, is I've discovered in my own case and in talking to cancer patients and survivors that the cancer caregiver is a community that doesn't seem to have any support at all. And I know, that my caregiver team were very important to my process, and unfortunately, in some ways, I would say I abused them. I took as much support as I could from them, and they were as stressed and worried as I was, and confused as I was, and they didn't have anyone to lean on for guidance and direction of how to be a good supportive caregiver. Are there cancer coaches who are looking at caregivers, or is it just an after effect that, oh yeah, sure, caregivers need some help and we'll throw them in? Paula, are you seeing any help being given to caregivers?
Yes. Certainly 5 or 10 years ago, the caregivers were definitely the unsung heroes. But more and more support is becoming available for the caregivers through the cancer treatment centers and on an individual basis. And most of us coaches who work with patients and survivors also work with caregivers. It's not a huge component of my practice, but I certainly have worked with many, and sometimes I'll do family work or work with the caregiver and the patient directly. So many of the cancer coaches that are out there do provide caregiver support. And then because caregiving is growing, if the support is growing, there is a National Caregivers Association that puts on annual conferences and webcasts and a lot of great information for caregivers. And you're seeing it more and more articles written. I know Camper Lane and I and Sharon Roth Lichtenfeld from the Cancer Survivorship Coalition had an article for caregivers a couple of years ago in Coping with Cancer magazine and in Breast Cancer Wellness magazine, talking about some of the issues. And Dave, if you'd like to put those articles out for your people, I'll be happy to send you the links after our event today. But I think it's really important to know that I really see in my work that the oncology healthcare community is definitely becoming more active and engaging the caregiver in support as well. Because in my opinion and my experience, the caregiver has it even worse because they're supposed to suck it up and be the strong person. And so nobody even asks them what's happening, what's going on with them. But yet, in my work I see, they face the exact same emotional shock, distress, fear, uncertainty that the patient does. And yet, but oftentimes I'll see the patient and the caregiver being strong for each other, and neither of them are really getting the support that they need because they're so concerned about helping the other. So I like to do in some of my workshops is have the caregivers and the patient in together so that there can be a really honest and open dialogue about what you need. And I'll use my own example. I'm a very independent person. When I was going through chemotherapy, I wanted to do every single thing by myself that I possibly could. My partner at the time was a helper, a giver. you know, and he reached the point where he was driving me crazy. Let me get you water. Let me fluff your pillows. Let me do this. Let me do that. And finally I was like, you have to stop this. You're making me feel sicker by not letting me do what I wanted to do. But yet another person in my position would be going, oh, thank God you're here to help me. You know, so the only way that we can all support each other effectively is to be able to have dialogue about what's really happening with us emotionally. And it's really interesting to see sometimes the parallel things that are happening with the caregiver and the patient, and neither of them are talking about it. And it's a huge gift to be able to bring that, to open up the door to that conversation. And I'm really thrilled to see the oncology healthcare picking up that ball and rolling with it, because I do see it.
I'm just wondering if, as this emerging area grows, that we end up with very clear specialists in the area. Certainly, again, as people who watch me know me, I'm a researcher. I just love getting information of what's really happening. And as I've looked at this one area of coaching, I found that, yes, everyone as a cancer patient, survivor, or caregiver is dealing with emotional issues. And so there's sort of a generic level of help that you can get from a number of suppliers. But if you're a parent dealing with pediatric cancer, you have a set of other issues that you have to deal with. If you're a breast cancer survivor going through a mastectomy and reconstruction, there's certain issues. Myself, as colon cancer and having lost my bladder and prostate as well, there are body issues, but there are also other issues that are coming up that I need. The specialist areas of treatment and concern based on what kind of cancer you had, the age that you're at, if you're 25 and single, dealing with cancer-related issues, then fertility and sexuality become prominent. If you're married and going through emotional distress, there are marital relationship issues that come out. And I'm finding some of the coaches that I've met, and as some of you know, I'm creating a cancer coach directory that will make it easy for all these different groups to communicate with one another. That the specialty area may start to come out of it as the industry emerges. Now, I was really surprised that it hadn't already been there, but I was put in my place a couple of weeks ago, and I said, well, how come all this isn't working the way it should? They said, well, you got to remember, 5-6 years ago, the mortality rates were 65 to 70%. However, now, 5 years later, we've got longevity at 65%. So we've got 14.5 million survivors in the U.S., another 3.5 million survivors in Canada, nearly 3 million new cancer patients coming in every year. There's a huge group of people who are living with cancer for multiple years and have lots of different issues that require help. So this generic of, well, I'll deal with stress, I'll deal with anxiety, I'll deal with depression. Yes, but how about dealing with all the other issues that come out of the age and marital status and type of cancer that you're dealing with? Any comments from Sheila on that? Or?
Well, I think this goes back to our very first webcast, Dave. If you remember, we were talking about the three components. You've got the patient, the caregiver, and the healthcare community. And as Paula mentioned, how great it would be if we could all get together and communicate. And this forum certainly is a wonderful start to do that. I'm just so excited to be a part of this. But as you were saying, I think it's just critical that we find a way to talk. And who knows if we'll come out in specialties or we'll have generic groups. But the important thing is that we're getting the important things addressed, and the patient is feeling like they're being heard, the caregiver is being heard, and even the medical community. I've done a lot of workshops in caring for the caregiver, and that doesn't just include the family and the people who are surrounding the patient as a non-medical person, but I've worked with nurses in their stress levels and managing their stress, and that's another component. They are unaware of some of the things that are happening with the patient. The patient is unaware of what's going on with the nurses. So this communication is critical, and I just am so pleased to be a part of this.
It's growing at such a rate as the needs become identified. Again, the people I've been talking to, and I've said, oh, I'm going to do a broadcast on coaching, and people came up and said, why in the world would anyone go for a coach? I wouldn't go for a coach. And then someone else said, well, if it's a coach, they better be medically certified, and but I don't want to deal with a therapist. That's not the kind of issues that I want to deal with. And others have said, yeah, I'm really got a work reentry problem coming back out of my treatment, and I really need a life coach who's got some experience of helping me manage my career and my vision. And then a divorce a coach was talking to me and said, I spent a lot of time dealing with divorces as a result of chronic diseases and in particular cancer treatment, that there's such a growth now, as I said, with millions and millions of people struggling and saying, where do I go for help? And certainly in my case and some of the other survivors I've talked to, when you go back to the cancer clinic for your 90-day scan, or if you're lucky enough, your 60-day scan or your 6-month scan, and you ask for help, they don't know what to do with you, because their psychosocial department is dealing with people in active treatment, dealing with the navigation through the process, and really don't have much help or skill on some of these other particular issues. So it just fascinates me that we're at the groundswell of something, and it's going to be really interesting to watch. And in fact, some of the people I've talked to said, well, why don't you do some other broadcasts on the topic? And I think what we're going to do is today is an orientation to this area of coaching. Next month, I've got a cancer coach who has a specialty in working with breast cancer-related issues. And we're going to take a case study of probably a body image issue and try to explore, well, what does a cancer coach do to help the person deal with that? And then the month after, we're going to look at it through the eyes of the oncologist, the medical professional, and I'll throw out to Jen, because she's still in the list here, that maybe one of her coaches who have this integrative oncology approach can come on and talk about what they would do with a person dealing with breast cancer and reconstruction issues, so that we've got not only this orientation that we've done today, but a continuation over the next 2 broadcasts of what actually happens in the coaching process and the different perspectives of help that you can go looking for. And if we're successful, we'll also have our Cancer Coach Directory with lots more cancer coaches in it who can talk about the kinds of services that they have to offer. And we can try to be that service that does, in fact, help people find their new normal through the supportive group that's there. So let me just, pass the torch back to Paula for some closing words, and then back to Sheila, and we'll close it out. But Paula, any final thoughts before we end our session today?
Yeah, I think this has been a really fabulous conversation. And I think what I would want people to know is that there is a really large variety, as you said, of coaches out there in areas of expertise. And so if you're looking for somebody, just be aware that different people focus on different things, and that doesn't make one coach better or worse than the other. But if you're struggling with medical and financial and stuff like that, you're going to want a very different coach if you're focusing on how do I emotionally take back my life and be happier. And there's so many people out there that are good. The other thing I would suggest when you're looking for a coach, the one question that you want to ask is if the coach is certified by the International Coach Federation. Coaching is a growing industry, and so the regulations are not mandated. And so if you want to be sure that you're working with somebody who has a high level of professional education and experience, the International Coaching Federation is the governing body, and most of the coaches that are engaged in the cancer coach arena are definitely credentialed through that body. And just to say, one of the most beautiful things that I've seen happen with thousands of survivors is that after the dust settles, after that transition, after treatment ends and the new normal life comes into play, learning to be able to be the person you are, to be able to contribute back in the way that you want to, it's a gift beyond measure. And Dave was talking about this before we got on the call, how before cancer, his life, it wasn't nearly as fulfilling as it was now. And I have to echo that for myself and so many of my clients. What's started out to be the worst thing that I thought could happen to me has turned out to take me in such a beautiful direction and to appreciate life more and to be myself more. And I get to help people do that. I mean, it's amazing. And so never think that cancer is a bad thing. There's always a way to find your own empowerment and your own path and purpose through it.
Well, thank you very much. And let me move over to Sheila.
I have to echo almost everything that Paula has said is pretty much what I would say. I think when it's really important to know that there are lots of different kinds of help out there, and each one of you is a different individual. We all have different needs and different concerns. Things we mentioned earlier that might be very important to me may not be very important to you. So as you're looking for someone to help you through a process, I'd say really trust your gut. See who you connect with. See who feels the best. I mean, and that to me is one of the most important things in any professional helping you, whether it be a medical professional or a psychosocial professional. Your belief in how well you're going to get working with that person is just as important as how much they know or how much they can help you from their perspective. So really trust your gut on it and know that, as Paula said, you are going to be better than you could ever imagine, and you have more power to heal yourself than you ever could have imagined. So that's what I want to say in closing.
Those are great comments, and I think it is a question of what is it that you're seeking. You know, the help that you get from your family and friends, very valuable support during the journey. And as Paula said, you've got the licensed credentials of a life coach, and as Jen had mentioned, she has certifies people through the National Association of Professional Cancer Coaches, the NAPCC certification, so that if you're looking for those people who are there that have credentials, and then you have the therapists who have a different level of credentials. So you can go the whole spectrum from friends and family helping you deal with issues to more complex issues that require someone with professional training. They're out there if you can find them, and that to me has still been a problem, is where do these people exist? They're not overly visible yet. I think that's going to change, and as I mentioned, I think Find Your New Normal is going to be a vehicle that will help to blend people or help match people, not match, but help people locate those kinds of professionals that are out there. And as long as we meet people's needs, then we'll carry on doing it. As Silvero has mentioned, he thinks that this kind of conversation has a lot of value. I've met Silverio on other hangouts, and he joined us from Italy today. We had an international audience, which was quite exciting to see. So it's a matter of trying to meet people's needs and letting you know that there is a coach capability available to you. Depending on what you're looking for, take a look on Google, take a look at our directory, visit the NAPCC, visit the Well Beyond This, the Cancer Journey, and we'll see if we can help direct you to all the other resources that we have that I'm finding as I look at this area. So thanks very much for joining us this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're joining us from. It's always fun to have coffee. I guess we should have a coffy mug, Sheila.
No, I had my water.
Yeah, well, yeah, but we should have something that we're saying it's coffee time.
We
and
should.
This is the kind of tone, for those of you that are just joining us for the first time, that we have, is really just understanding that it's a conversation around a topic. And then every now and then we'll do some more pointed videos with slides for those of you out there who want the detailed information. We will do some videos that have some more concrete material. But anyways, thanks very much for joining us. It was nice Paula to join us. I thank you very much for coming in. And
My
Sheila,
pleasure.
as always, nice to have you here. And
Thank you.
we'll all see you at the end of next month. We actually have a date right now. I believe it's July 29th. So put that in your schedule. Looks like we'll do 1 o'clock on Wednesday, the 29th of July, to carry on the conversation about coaching. And I hope you'll all come to join us when we get on air next month. So until we talk to you again, take good care of yourself and talk to you real soon. Bye for now.